Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen and enjoy my stories every day. The house was quiet, eerily so, as I returned from a late work shift. The clock had struck midnight by the time my key turned in the lock. It wasn't uncommon for Jenna, my wife of 7 years, to be up late working on her projects. She was a freelance graphic designer and often kept odd hours. However, tonight, something felt off. As I hung my coat, I noticed the faint glow emanating from beneath the door of Jenna's home office. It was subtle but unmistakable, the soft buzz of her computer still active, the hushed whispers of a late-night conference call, or so I thought. A few nights a week, she would lock herself away, claiming the concentration helped her creativity. I never questioned it, trusting her space and her process. But tonight, compelled by a nagging curiosity I couldn't shake, I approached the door. It was locked, as expected. "Jenna, are you coming to bed soon?" My voice was a mix of fatigue and feigned nonchalance. Yes. Just wrapping up a project." Her voice, usually calm and steady, cracked with a slight edge of panic. It struck a dissonant chord in my mind, but I dismissed it as stress or fatigue. Unable to shake a burgeoning sense of suspicion, I wandered into the kitchen for a drink of water, my mind racing. After a few restless minutes, I decided to head back to our bedroom, but as I passed her office again, I paused. The glow was gone, the silence now complete. Curiosity morphed into concern, then suspicion. Without much thought, I retrieved a spare key from our bedroom, a key she didn't know I had, and unlocked her office door. The room was shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from the street lamps outside casting long shadows. I reached for the light switch, hesitating as my hand brushed against something unexpectedly soft on the desk. I flicked the lights on, and my breath caught in my throat. There, on Jenna's meticulously kept desk, lay an assortment of adult toys. Not just any toys, but elaborate, expensive-looking ones, completely foreign to our shared experiences. My heart pounded as I picked up a note tucked beneath a purple silk scarf. "Can't wait for our next session, Mark." Mark? The name hammered in my mind like a dreadful drumbeat. I didn't know any Mark, and suddenly, the pieces started falling into place, the late nights, the locked doors, the sudden trips out of town. I stumbled back, a mix of anger and disbelief clouding my thoughts. How could she? We had promised transparency, fidelity. The foundation of our marriage felt shattered by the weight of her betrayal. I spent the rest of the night in the living room, a storm of emotions keeping me company. By dawn, a cold resolve had settled in. Jenna had betrayed me, and I couldn't let it stand. The love and trust one had for her were replaced by a desire for retribution. She had ruined the sanctity of our home, and in turn, I would ensure she understood the depth of my hurt. As the sun rose, casting a pale light over the remnants of our life together, I knew what needed to be done. The following chapters of our lives would be written without her, starting with a confrontation that would change everything. I would reclaim my life, and she would have to face the consequences of her actions. The office door creaked as I opened it once more, the morning light harsh against the remnants of the night's revelations. It was time to confront Jenna, to start the unwinding of our shared lives. Today, everything would change. As the morning light spilled into Jenna's office, I steeled myself for the confrontation. My heart pounded with a mixture of dread and determination. The evidence of her infidelity was scattered across her desk, a visceral reminder of the betrayal. I heard the soft patter of her footsteps before she appeared at the doorway, her face still sleepy and unaware of the storm about to break. "Morning," she mumbled, rubbing her eyes, her voice thick with sleep. She froze as she noticed the toys still on the desk and my cold, steady gaze. The color drained from her face. "Alex, Save it," I cut her off sharply, holding up the note signed by Mark. "Who's Mark? And don't lie to me, Jenna." The silence that followed was heavy, loaded with the weight of her secrets. She sank into the chair opposite me, her posture deflated, the facade of innocence crumbling. "Alex, I'm so sorry," she began, her voice a whisper. "It started as just some messages." "Just messages?" I scoffed, the bitterness evident in my tone. "And then you brought him here? Into our home?" Jenna's eyes welled with tears, her hands trembling as she clasped them in her lap. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake." "A mistake?" I repeated, the word like acid on my tongue. "You made a choice, Jenna." Over and over again. My voice rose as the hurt twisted into anger. "How long? How long has this been going on?" "It's been a few months," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "I was going to end it, I swear. It just got out of control." Out of control. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "You have destroyed everything, Jenna. How could you do this to us?" "I don't know, Alex, I truly don't know," she sobbed, her body shaking with the intensity of her tears. "I never wanted to hurt you." The raw pain in her voice did nothing to soften my resolve. "You should have thought of that before," I said coldly, my mind made up. "I want a divorce, Jenna. I can't look at you the same way. I can't trust you. Please, Alex, can we try to?" "No," I interrupted, my voice firm and final. "We're past that. I'll contact a lawyer today. It's over, Jenna." Leaving her in the office, I went to the living room and pulled out my phone. My fingers trembled as I dialed the number of a divorce attorney recommended by a colleague. The line clicked, and a calm voice answered, "Good morning, Thompson Law Firm, how can I help you?" "Hi, I need to speak with someone about filing for divorce," I managed to say, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. "Of course," the receptionist replied sympathetically. "One of our attorneys can see you today. We'll need some initial details to prepare for your consultation." As I provided my information, a deep sense of sorrow mingled with relief washed over me. The steps were in motion, there was no turning back now. I ended the call with a meeting scheduled for the afternoon, feeling the finality of the decision weigh heavily on my heart. The house felt different as I moved through it, every room tainted with memories of a life I thought we were building together. But I knew that reclaiming my space and my life started with removing her presence from it. I returned to the office, finding Jenna still sitting there, her tears dried, a resigned look on her face. "I'll stay with my sister," she said quietly, standing up and gathering her things. "I'll come back for the rest when you're not here." Watching her leave was like watching the last 5 years dissolve into nothingness. As the door closed behind her, I was left in the deafening silence of the house, the echoes of our past reverberating off the walls. The next chapter of my life was uncertain, filled with legal battles and heartache, but necessary. I was determined to find myself again, beyond the shadow of betrayal. The meeting with the divorce attorney was a sober affair, punctuated by the sharp taps of a keyboard as I recounted the details of Jenna's infidelity. The attorney, Ms. Thompson, was a middle-aged woman with a keen eye and a no-nonsense demeanor. She nodded along, her expression sympathetic but professional as she took notes. "So, you have clear evidence of the adultery," Ms. Thompson stated more than asked, peering over her glasses at me. "This will significantly influence the proceedings, especially concerning any alimony claims." I nodded, the reality of the situation settling in. "I want this to be over quickly," I said, the weariness evident in my voice. "We'll file the petition for divorce on grounds of adultery. I'll need all evidence you have, including any communication between your wife and her companion," Ms. Thompson advised, her voice firm. I assured her that I would bring everything I had found, including the note and the items from Jenna's office. Leaving her office, I felt a mixture of emotions. There was relief at having set the legal wheels in motion, but also a simmering anger at the thought of Jenna's betrayal. Back home, the house felt larger, emptier. I started sifting through Jenna's things, gathering her personal effects for her to collect later. As I did, I stumbled upon her laptop, still logged into her email. A flicker of curiosity, mingled with a vengeful urge, prompted me to scroll through her inbox. Among the mundane and everyday, a series of emails caught my eye, all exchanged with someone named Mark. The same Mark from the note. The emails were laced with romantic undertones and plans for future rendezvous. One email, in particular, detailed a planned getaway the next weekend to a nearby lake house, a trip I knew nothing about. My jaw tightened as I read, the sense of betrayal deepening. I printed the emails, adding them to the pile of evidence. That evening, as I was sorting through more of Jenna's belongings, the doorbell rang. Standing at the threshold was Mark, a tall man with an uncertain smile. "Alex, right?" He extended a hand, which I didn't take. "I think we need to talk." "What are you doing here?" My voice was cold, unwelcoming. "I'm here because I think there's been a misunderstanding. I want to clear the air." Mark's voice was calm, but there was a nervous twitch in his eyes. "There's nothing to discuss. You were involved with my wife." "That's all I need to know," I said sharply, the anger bubbling up again. "Look, I know how this looks, but it's not all black and white," Mark pleaded, taking a step forward. "Can we at least talk about this?" Against my better judgment, I stepped aside, letting him in. "Make it quick," I said, my arms crossed. Mark explained, somewhat awkwardly, how he and Jenna had met at a conference and connected over shared professional interests before it became personal. He claimed ignorance of her marital status initially, an excuse I found hard to swallow. "So you just stumbled into an affair?" I asked sarcastically. I didn't know at first. By the time I did, it was complicated. I'm not proud of it, Alex." Mark's admission was tinged with regret, but it did little to quell my resentment. The conversation was brief. After Mark left, I felt a renewed sense of clarity. Jenna's betrayal, facilitated by Mark, was a deliberate act, regardless of his excuses. I felt fortified in my decision to divorce, reinforced by the additional proof of her deception. The night grew deep and quiet as I sat alone, the printed emails before me. Tomorrow, I would deliver them to Ms. Thompson, and the wheels of justice would turn, hopefully grinding my marriage to a swift conclusion. The path was clear, but the journey was far from over. The intrigue of betrayal had unfolded, and retribution was only just beginning to take shape. The courthouse was a monument of stark, imposing stone, its solemnity echoing the finality of the proceedings within. As I sat on a hard bench waiting for the hearing to begin, I clutched the folder of printed emails and photographs, each a nail in the coffin of my marriage to Jenna. My heart beat with a mix of dread and determination. Today would mark the end of our shared chapter. Jenna arrived, looking pale and drawn, her eyes avoiding mine as she took a seat across the aisle. Mark was conspicuously absent, perhaps too cowardly to face the consequences of his actions. As the courtroom filled, a tense silence enveloped us, broken only by the occasional shuffle of feet or clearing of throats. When the judge entered, the formality of the moment struck me. Here, in this austere room, my marriage would be officially dissolved. Jenna's gaze finally met mine, a flicker of something like regret passing through her eyes. It was too late for regrets. "Alexander Morrow versus Jenna Morrow," the bailiff announced, and we both stood. The evidence was presented methodically, each email and photograph displayed for the court, a silent testament to Jenna's infidelity. Jenna's lawyer attempted to mitigate the damage, arguing for leniency and reconciliation, but the weight of the evidence was undeniable. As the judge prepared to deliver the verdict, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a message from a private investigator I had hired days after discovering Jenna's affair, instructed to dig deeper into her life. The timing was impeccable. Excusing myself, I stepped outside to take the call, my heart pounding with anticipation. "Mr. Morrow, we found something you should see," the investigator said without preamble. It's not just Mark. We've traced payments to multiple accounts linked to Jenna's, large sums that don't match her income from design work. My mind raced. Are you saying she's been paid by someone else? Exactly. And there's more. The accounts are linked to a known alias of a person involved in, let's say, very shady businesses. It seems Jenna's been living a double life, one that involves more than just infidelity. Armed with this new information, I returned to the courtroom, a plan forming in my mind. As I walked in, the judge was just about to speak. I interrupted, asking for a moment to present new evidence. With the court's reluctant permission, I outlined the findings, explaining the potential criminal activities Jenna might be involved in. The revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Jenna's face turned white, her lawyer immediately requesting a recess to discuss the matter. But the damage was done. The judge ordered an investigation into Jenna's finances, and her plea for alimony was denied on the spot. As the court adjourned, Jenna's eyes met mine again, this time filled with a mix of fear and anger. She knew that her secrets, deeper and more damaging than mere adultery, were about to come to light. Outside the courthouse, Jenna approached me, her demeanor one of someone trapped. "Alex, please, let's talk about this," she pleaded. "There's nothing left to discuss," I said coldly, feeling the sharp sting of betrayal anew but satisfied with the turn of events. "You made your choices, Jenna." Walking away, I felt the finality of our parting. I had come seeking closure for a broken heart, but I left with the knowledge that I had exposed a deceit so deep it went beyond anything I had imagined. Jenna had betrayed not just our marriage but herself, entangled in activities that would likely see her behind bars. As I drove away, the weight of the past months began to lift. I had sought retribution and found justice instead. The path ahead would be one of rebuilding and healing, but I was ready to face it, free from the shadows of deceit.